So we've got an amazing panel lined up for you now. I will introduce Maria, who is one of our journalists and deputy editor at the Media Leader. And yeah, I'll just pass it over to you and take it away, guys. Thank you so much.
Cool. Thank you, Kat. So in this session, we're talking about the challenge for car manufacturers. So how do you stand out in a busy market when every brand is touting an electric model? And how do you shift the narrative of Kia being considered a sort of value brand? So in this panel, we'll talk about this Kia campaign that tries to tackle these challenges, and the team would look to answer this brief with 4 C's: change, collaboration, creativity, and cinema. So we have here Michael Bensley, Head of Client and Digital Cinema Media, Robert Breese, Managing Partner, Havas Media, Helen Weber, Business Director at Havas Play UK, and then finally we have Laurence Collings, Head of Client Strategy at Innocean UK. So let's start with change, because that's what we're here to do in this industry. So Robert, what did you see is the key challenge in this brief, and what did you want to do differently, whether that's relating to change to Kia's previous work or the car category more generally? What made this campaign different?
So change is an operative word, and it's the journey we've been on with Kia for the last 2-3 years. And to generate growth is what was required from a brand point of view, but also from what was happening in the market. So from a brand perspective, they're relatively new to the automotive industry, automotive market in the UK, and they've just sold product based on really good cars at very affordable prices. The consequence of that is kind of the image scores and the perception of Kia is reasonably low. And also that the audience and the people who are buying cars are a bit older, so you're constantly having to conquest and trying to drive new people into the brand. So there's an ambition there to, as the market moves towards a premium space, is how do you elevate the Kia brand perception, and how do you bring in younger audiences which are alien to Kia previously. And then secondly, in terms of what's happening in the automotive space, as of 2035, you're not allowed to sell new petrol and diesel cars in the UK. Everything's got to be an EV. But in the kind of scramble to kind of own that space, what's happened is that everyone's saying the same thing, using exactly the same channels, a lot of TV in particular, and you've just tell me TV sets these days, you're bound to see like an EV ad. And it's really confusing people, and it's creating this homogeneity. And actually, there's a survey I saw about 12 months ago, 18 months ago, which is who do consumers believe are leaving the electric car race. And 2 of the top 3 didn't even have electric cars in the market, Toyota and Ford, I think at the time it was. So there's definitely a need for change. And the way we've always thought about Kia in terms of how we approach plans is we're kind of built from like a data-driven approach and econometrics upwards. And it's given us a similar profile, to be completely honest, to the rest of the automotive industry. And there's loads of smarts that underpin it in terms of the way we navigate it, but there's definitely a need for kind of change and a bit of bravery that underpins it. So kind of 3 critical kind of steps he took. One was thinking about not just kind of reach and trying to hit everyone in the market, but about attentive reach, on the assumption that not all impressions and impacts are equal. Some are more valuable than others. And actually, with so much noise out there, is how do you get to spend more time with those consumers in a more engaged way, and actually pay a premium for those impacts and pay a premium for that moment to elevate yourself above the category. But not just targeting everybody within that, it's also just paying more for particular audiences and younger audiences which are more valuable. So the previous approach is more about as many people as the reach-based thing, the banana field reach-based piece, but actually it's more about the premiumness of those audiences and the environments and paying more for that. The second thing we did there was thinking not as much about campaign to campaign, about continuity. And what I think we've been guilty of in the past is when we're running partnerships, is we've done partnerships with Boardmasters, with Sky, with News UK and so forth, but there have been 3-4 month isolated partnerships. It's how do you think about kind of a longer term? I read somewhere that you have to tell someone something 7 times for them to remember it and to fully comprehend it. So showing up in their kind of passion point spaces on a more regular basis and actually be able to land that message with required frequency. And the third, I suppose, is more of a kind of culture change that's required within the business. Automotive is very much kind of short-termist, and again, if you look out there, a lot of the advertising you'll see is it's like finance offers, just because people are kind of just chasing their tails and trying to sort of pump up their numbers. But what we want to try and do is try and look from more of a longer term perspective and take 20% out of our plans and move it towards longer term initiatives to warm up those audiences, those new audiences, is to create that continuity, to drive those premiumness metrics and to take that leadership in electrification. So it's convincing the business with a model approach that actually by generating growth in those upper funnel metrics, which doesn't happen overnight, how you generate growth in those upper funnel metrics will drive longer term business success. So the three big things we did in summary then is like moving towards more attentive audiences and paying more for accessing those. It's about longer term continuity, and it's about shifting the mentality to a long term perspective and measurement.
Great. And so on to collaboration, because, you know, these sort of partnerships involve a lot of different teams. So Laurence and Helen, can you tell us about how this collaboration came about and what role you each played?
Yeah, sure. So my role is to talk to all the clients at Kia. And although Rob sort of talked about the fact this is a very high profile and effective brand partnership, it's a long-term brand partnership. Brand is dealt with by a brand team, but it's on behalf of the entire company. So at OEMs, at manufacturers, anyone who has a brand, that brand is there to power the rest of the business. So you've got to firstly understand the stakeholders involved at the client and get them to collaborate with you and to commit to ownership as part of that process. And that often means having a go at it about a year out. And it's about really, I think, acknowledging the investment that's going to be required from a financial media point of view, from a creative point of view. But when you commit to something like this, you've got to put a huge amount of human resource and effort. And then if you go for it, you're going to miss out on the opportunity to do other things. So it's got to be right. It's got to be right for that sort of business as well. So we had to bring to life the opportunity as we saw it. And as Rob said, it's a long-term brand building exercise, but has to work for the entire business, which is really interesting. And we recognized strategically from a media and from an audience point of view that we were simply just needing to shift opinion. So the really healthy business selling lots of cars, they rebranded and they needed to bring that new brand claim to life. And one of the brand claims was they believe that movement inspires. And any brand can say what they want, but it's down to the people you're saying it to believe it or not. And we recognize there's a huge opportunity in cinema. You know, I mean, in basic terms, you could say that cinema takes you to new places, shows you new faces, takes you to new lands, new universes, new planets. And we believe that movement inspires is a meaningful brand ethos for Kia. And we wanted to demonstrate that by committing to supporting cinema. We recognize the power of film as an area. It's very cohesive and it brings people together. It's a bit different, sort of like a territory like music, I think, which is a bit more tribal. But cinema is different because you're talking about the actual principle of going to a local independent cinema. These are often independent arts hubs all around the UK. And Kia, like every other manufacturer, they've got their brand OEM team, but they actually sell through franchises. They sell through dealers. Kia, 190 of them. That's not an untypical amount for a big OEM. So what you do in your brand space has got to make, the dealers think of it as fuzzy brand stuff. So you've got to make sure it isn't just fuzzy brand stuff. It's got to actually deliver the goods for them and be valuable. So part of the process was to illustrate that actually we can activate at the dealer level by pairing them with local cinemas and bringing the whole partnership to life. So that's really, really important. Part of the new brand ethos is demonstrating leadership in EV, in electrification. And the brand is fantastic at doing that. But part of being a leader, we would argue, is to turn up to a partnership and do more than just broadcast a message out there. It's about enriching the experience for the people in the auditorium, for people in the communities. And what we've done is stuff like outdoor screenings, benefits for the Picture House members, to give them extra tickets and so forth. Supported Sundance to bring that into independent cinema as well. So we're just trying to bring a bit more to the experience so we demonstrate that we're actually committed to sponsoring and being a partner of independent cinema. And that was really that's the foundation piece. We had to bring all that to life about a year out. Then we worked with the very good people at DCM, who we know really, really well, and the teams are so cohesively sort of integrated that that's how we sort of started that process.
Nice. I think from my perspective, taking it back a slight step, kind of when the brief came to us, this wasn't a cinema-specific partnership. It was very much finding the right partner or platform that could really help shift the dial and move those perceptions for Kia. So then it was very much our role to identify what that platform and market was, and kind of, I think, kind of Rob alluded to, it was about really taking ownership of one big thing, doing one thing, doing it well, and really everyone coming behind it and backing it and moving it forward with all of the same kind of aim to drive that success for Kia. One of the best things about this brief for me in terms of working in the partnership space is very much there was such long-term thinking. This was something that they wanted to do for 3 to 5 years and beyond, and really, shift those perceptions for future car buyers. You alluded to yourself as well, actually, like they are in a noisy and cluttered market. So it was our role to very much identify where that white space was and then find kind of a meaningful role for Kia to play in it, and which is touching all those points Laurence mentioned in bringing it to life for those consumers. So yeah, with that, we were looking for something with longevity. We were looking for a partner that would very much speak to a premium audience with multiple touch points, so we could work with the dealers and really bring that to life, which was absolutely crucial for this. And the high attention space, and this very much led us to cinema, to DCM and their independent estate.
And so on to the execution part. So Laurence, you've already kind of explained a bit about the work that you were doing, so perhaps you can just elaborate a bit more on the creativity element of this whole thing, because that's what we want, creativity.
Yeah, we sort of, you recognise, you don't need me to tell you that, cinema's an amazing place, massive screen. You don't get up to put the kettle on. You're told not to have your phone on. If you're even an average ad, when you put it up on the screen and give it a good Dolby mix, it looks fantastic. But if you make an ad which is fit for purpose, it can look absolutely outstanding. And it's not unreasonable to say, when you're in front of people who have paid to be there, they're paying quite a lot of money, really, for a 2-hour segment of time compared to anything else they're doing. They're in a good mood. They're leaning forward. They're attentive, all the stuff we're sort of talking about there. So if you can play to that, if you can entertain them, at the very least, you just make sure that you turn up and you showcase your product beautifully. As long as you work with that as a sort of a baseline, it's a great opportunity, I think, to take part and to benefit that experience. And all the other stuff we were saying there, where you can turn up in meaningful ways to make the experience better, is also really good. But I think fundamentally, for me at least, I think you've got to really work on what you're doing on that big screen, because I still remember going to cinema when I was a nipper and seeing the ads that I remember very vividly. They must have had the age breaks off, so I remember the Smirnoff ad when I was a kid. It was fantastic. But we endeavour to do that. We endeavour to entertain and demonstrate. And at heart, our brand marketeers, our product marketeers as well. And cinema's a lovely place to show a great product. And if you're willing to, you've got to spend some money on production to make sure you're showcasing it in the right way. But if you do that, you can really, I think, ace it. We've looked at other opportunities such as podcasts. We feel that's really interesting for an audience who are really drilling down to a sort of an area of a real passion. We can help to facilitate extra conversations and bring new stories to light. So we feel that that's an interesting way to, I guess, in that sort of, we typically call it in the sort of media mix, the mid-funnel of just, you've got an extended opportunity to bring content to life. That makes sense for me, that works well. We're looking forward to outdoor cinema this year, because we're going to try and bring the actual product to bear in an environment which makes sense. So the cars that our client makes, you can run stuff off them, you can plug stuff into it. So it's quite impressive. And when you see it in situ, doing this clever stuff, powering a popcorn machine, for instance, it's impressive stuff. It leaves you with this impression that, wow, this is a little bit different. And you're turning up to a media event and just making it more memorable. So there's a whole host of things. I think we've got the basics ticked off. We're just looking forward to working out how we sort of take it forward from here. But the key to this is, I think, creatively being clear in the strategy, not deviating from it, because the second you drop out and you stop actually talking about the brand in a meaningful way, you've kind of lost the collateral that you've built up over time. And that kind of comes back to the first point. You've got to get people on board with the purpose of what this is trying to achieve. There you go.
So let's talk a bit more about cinema then. Michael, you are best placed to discuss here. So tell us about this partnership from DCM's point of view, and what results did you see from this campaign?
Yeah, absolutely. There were a couple of factors that sort of really hammered home that cinema was the right home for this partnership. We've sort of all touched on it already, but attention was absolutely critical for this. I think anecdotally, I think the industry is very much aware that cinema is a real leader in being able to maximise that attention. But around the sort of inception of the planning of this sponsorship, we'd conducted a load of research with Lumen, some sort of leaders in the attention game, just to really sort of get under the bonnet of just how attentive cinema really is in relation to the wider media mix. And the results were astounding. We were really pumped about it. It just really hammered home the fact that cinema is the place to go if you need to land a story and be able to deliver that attention, that high intensity attention at scale. And I think that's really critical for Kia, because it was the story and the ambition was a departure from what they'd historically had been saying, sort of much to what Rob was saying earlier. You know, it was moving away from the notion of reliability and value and 7 years warranty, moving into a space that was doubly hard because every car manufacturer was sort of singing the song of wanting to be leaders in electric. So having a canvas that really maximised that attention gave Kia the headroom to be able to reach an audience who are really focused, who are really attentive, and to be able to really engage in that story and that ambition. And the second part was sort of understanding. So once we recognised that cinema was absolutely the right home to be telling the story, we had to sort of identify the right space within our portfolio within which to sing this song. And we did a load of research just to understand the Kia audience and sort of, who they are and how they behaved in cinema. And there were some really interesting insights that fell out of it. We know they're big cinephiles. They're, they love art house, premium, independent film. They're happy to pay more for a premium experience. They're more likely to be members of their local cinema. So, independent cinema was absolutely a no-brainer, and that sort of manifested itself in Kia becoming sponsors of our independent cinema estate. And it was a huge success off the back of that. It allowed Kia to align themselves with a really premium but also a younger audience, and the results were honestly astounding. We sort of expected it was going to be a success, but at a sort of broader level, Kia sold, more cars than they'd ever sold before. They attracted a much younger audience who were pulling in loads of younger people into the brand. And the brand metric scores the brand metric scores went through the roof. So, yeah, it was incredible. And we've just presented back Wave 3 results off the back of our third-party research, and that was Wave 3, and we're in year 3 now of the partnership, and it's been a huge success. Again, we sort of have to double check the numbers to just check that they are as good as they showcase. And just as a bit of a snapshot, we see that it's 90% brand awareness, 80% of consumers believe that it is a premium car mark, 170% uplift, and people are more keen to buy a Kia as their next car, 140% uplift in believing that Kia are leaders in electrification. So, those are just 4 stats off the back of 30 pages of glowing results. So we're all super proud of that.
Yeah, if I just like to add in there, we look at the optics of the brand health and its perceptions of brand and quality and opinion and all the important stuff that makes you actually turn to a brand which you might not have considered before. It takes years and years and years to build. But something like this as a backbone for it, you are just relying on more advertising-based communications, which is so much more difficult. So for us, it's an absolutely fantastic baseline with which we can sort of explain who we are, what we stand for, and where the brand's sort of heading, really.
So let's have a look at more widely kind of thoughts for the industry as a whole. Logistically, what do you think makes a collaboration successful? So what advice could you give from this partnership? Could you give brands and agencies? How do you make it work smoothly when there are so many teams involved?
Shall I have a time is a good one to start with, I think, because don't underestimate the amount of time it takes to go through a standard process you might agree on. And we go through we've had 2 renewals, and the process of working with a trusted partner who we know the value of the property, it takes time. It really does, just to bring everyone on board and take on board and communicate feedbacks from internal stakeholders. Apart from that, I'd say partnership should be more than advertising. So you've got to make sure you're bringing value to the audience. You've got to work out why the people are there in the first place, and you're not just turning up to advertise. And although, something we haven't made a big deal about is that the partnership actually gives a very important bottom line contribution to a lot of independent cinemas, which is significant, but that we try not to, at the moment, make a huge deal about that, because that feels very pay-to-play sort of claim-wise, but it is important. It's something perhaps we should bring out. But as I said, I'm just repeating myself again, it's just working out how you add value through different touch points. Other things, like cinema tickets are relatively cost-effective to buy as a promotional tool, but they've got a disproportionately high perception of value. So anything you can do in a partnership where you get that equation of relatively low cost, high perception of value, that's a great one to do. And just so you can enable people to get to do stuff, it sort of helps you as well, in our case, to sort of support people getting to cinema. So it's a grassroots support. So that, I would say, are good sort of foundations.
Yeah, nice. I'd say definitely working with good people helps. And I think when there are multiple parties involved, because there's more than just us four working on this, there's other agencies involved, there's obviously the client, ensure kind of everyone's roles and responsibilities are very clear. It keeps everyone in the same lane and ensures everyone kind of moving forward with the same purpose. Everyone understands what they need to do in order to make this successful. So yeah, I would say that's kind of key.
We're a bit short on time, so Michael, I hope you can merge this with the next question I have for you as well. So apart from just, general advice about partnerships, but also specifically for you, how do you make sure a partnership like yours is authentic and resonates with your audience in cinema?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think what I love about this partnership is it feels like a value exchange. So Kia could have played it quite safe and just used cinema as a canvas to sort of sweat their TVC. But it really evolved through collaboration, through creativity, through bravery to just sort of evolve that cinema strategy, supercharge it into more than just the screen. And there are multiple touch points and it sort of lives through the line. And we're not just using cinema to just shout a story at consumers, but we're creating an environment, an ecosystem to sort of really elevate the cinema-going experience for independent cinema goers. So I think that's a really key way within which to see sort of continued success within this sort of partnership.
I think to add to that, we kind of, from our side, and the brief has always been about acts and not ads to ensure we're showing up in a very meaningful way in this cultural space, basically. So yeah, Laurence has alluded to it as well, to be authentic, you've got to do more than just show up.
And so to wrap up this session, well, let's talk about measurement and how do we measure success? What does it mean? What does it look like? Robert, if you can finish us off.
Yeah, sure. So this is a long-term brand building strategic partnership. It's not about just flicking it on and you'll see sales, web traffic, so forth, shoot through the roof. At the inception stage, there needs to be acknowledgement and recognition from all stakeholders that you're not going to see those immediate changes. But what was important at that stage when we got everyone's buy-in was that we properly modelled the effects of the partnership and understood what an increase of 1% in consideration or quality would mean at the bottom of the funnel. But it's not just about assuming that's the right premise, then 2 years later check in and say, did this work? It's like, oh no, never mind. It's about having those kind of markers as check-ins in between. So Michael alluded to the brand uplift study, which identify, are we on the journey and the trajectory we expect to be, but also things like engagement rates of shared social posts, competition metrics and things like that. All those have got benchmarks attached to them just to make sure that we are building in the right direction. There's also a second set of stakeholders, not about who's buying the car. We've also got dealerships and dealers as well, because they're franchisees, and if something's not right, they'll tell you. But the partnership is basically built to deliver through the funnel with them at its heart, and the verbatims and the feedback's been phenomenal from them. But we're 2-3 years into the partnership now, and as Michael alluded to, is 2023 was the highest number of cars Kia ever sold. Quarter 1 of 2024, again, is the highest quarter they've ever seen. The age profile is coming down sharply, and the shape on brand index of the growth in those metrics we're trying to shift is pretty much unbelievable, quite frankly. So it's genuinely smashing it on all fronts. It's like a privilege to be involved in the project.
That's pretty amazing. I think you guys will agree. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I think we've covered it.
We love it.
No,
That's it.
I think act, not ads, is an excellent way to look at a good partnership between brands and teams and agencies. So yeah, thank you so much, you guys, for all of your valuable contribution. I hope you all learned something interesting. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.